not been the leader on a general program, but I'm happy to be back, and I'm happy that we had a good turnout in our new location, and we'll be looking forward to some more programs later in the year. I'll be making announcements about the programs for the rest of the year, probably in the April saddlebag. And we're fortunate to have two great representatives from our local Forest Service here, Brian Block and John Gomes. He's the new Deputy District Ranger, and I'll turn the program over to them now.
Well, we've been pretty busy with a lot of things lately.
Who are you, sir?
My name is Brian Block.
Okay, thank you.
I was acting district ranger when Al left, and I'm not sure how well this is working for you guys, but it should be okay.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. So when he left, we had somebody step in for a little while, beginning of the Borel fire. I was helping that out. Then I took an official detail for 4 months and have been extending that as much as possible for the transition period when we get a new district ranger. So I've been acting as the district ranger for a few months now, and I'll be transitioning back into my position, which is still the ecosystem manager. So I'm kind of in charge of a lot of the timber projects, a lot of the fuels management projects, and other vegetation type work that we do here on the forest.
There isn't an actual acting district ranger right now?
That is correct. We do not have an actual acting district ranger. We don't have a detailer in place, and we don't have an official ranger.
Okay, thank you.
So, like I was starting to say, we've been pretty busy here. We didn't get enough time to put together a real formal presentation, so we're just kind of flying by the seat of our pants right now. Kind of going to come up here and share as much information as we can. We had Tim Kelly was going to come in here and talk about a few more other things. He ended up getting busy with some tribal relations projects that we have going on, some big fuels projects that we're doing across the whole forest. And so his priority was definitely talking with our local tribes and their representatives and making sure that they had a voice in that big project that we're working on. So I think John will talk probably a little bit more about that. I'll start off mostly with some of the timber projects we've had. Because of all the fires we've had in the last few years, the French fire, the Windy fire, the Castle fire, a little fire we called the Borel here last year. Most of our focus is going to be in fire, salvage, and restoration type activities. We have started work up on the French fire, up around Alta Sierra, down Rancho Ria Boulevard. We put together a project for roadside hazard tree work, about 13 miles worth of roadside hazard trees being removed up there right now. We're still in the middle of that, so we're trying to get it so that it's safe for all of you to be recreating out there and driving down those roads. So in the middle of that, and we're also working on a restoration project. It's about 2,500 acres around the French fire. Now that has been pushed back several years. We were hoping to try and get that going, get some timber out, help supply the mill with some material. And the fact is, when it came down to the Castle and the Windy primarily, those were such important restoration activities in the giant Sequoia groves that we have just to the district to the north of us, that all hands ended up working over there and helping out that process. So French fire restoration and the timber side of that ended up being kind of reduced. So we are still going to do a lot of work. We're going to get rid of a bunch of that material up there, and then we are going to be planting trees. So that is our main goal. This thing really likes being close.
Yeah,
So that is one of the projects we're working on. It is going to be what we call a stewardship project. We'll end up paying people to come out and do a lot of that work. But again, about 2,500 acres worth of work up there, and get some trees planted and start getting things, working towards the condition that they were in prior to the French fire. So that was one of those questions. So any questions on the French fire? Yes, sir.
What is the risk of not completing this work?
the risk of not completing the work is well, right now what we have is a lot of standing dead trees out there. And as they start to decay and fall down, they will become laying fuels. And that heavy fuel accumulation up on that hillside is going to make firefighting in the future, especially as brush comes up, much more difficult. So that is one of our main goals, is strategically removing a lot of that large material so that we will have a much safer fuels environment as far as vegetation fuels into the future. And we start planting more trees, therefore we're making better habitat for our endangered species wildlife. We're doing better work for hydrology. Most of the drinking water in the nation comes off of our national forests, and in order to keep good, clean, safe drinking water, you need to have trees growing and vegetation covering it. Otherwise you get a lot of runoff and turbidity and like solids, moving through the system.
And is French fire, is that in national forest?
Yes. Almost all of the French fires in national forest. It started in BLM down near Waggy Flat and moved up, and then we will be doing a lot of work all the work on the forest.
One question, what mills are available to take the wood to reuse it?
It goes out to bid, so any mill that is around can bid on it as long as they can pay for the haul cost. The mills that have showed some interest in it are Terabella, which is just south of Porterville, and Standard. Standard is an awful long ways. It's in Sonora, up in Stanislaus County. Yeah. So, well, actually, it's up in Tulare County. Tuolumne County. Sorry, Tuolumne County. They're the next closest mill other than Terabella in just outside of Porterville.
What if they don't? What are you gonna do?
If they don't want to purchase it,
Yeah.
we have different options. We do have other facilities such as mulchers or chipping companies. We are looking into facilities or other people that do biomass cogeneration. Most of the cogen plants in Kern County have switched over to different types of fuels, so that could also be an expense. And unfortunately, there is we'll get the work done, we'll stack it up in large landings, and we'll burn it if we have to. Not ideal, but one way or another, we'll get it cleaned up.
Just a question, why would companies that make pellets, why wouldn't they be interested in all this?
They are.
Oh, they are interested, okay.
The problem is we don't have any pellet mills close by, and it's really expensive to haul it a long ways. We have had some companies interested in putting up or building pellet plants and what they call biochar in Kern County. They've looked at some places out towards the desert. They've looked at some places in the valley here. What they want is a guarantee of a supply, and the government cannot guarantee a supply. We've got all the material they would want, but we cannot guarantee it. And so without a guarantee, it's a huge risk on some of those companies, and they're evaluating that risk, but they're not here yet. We are also currently working on the Burrell fire. We've done about 5 miles of hazard tree removal on Breckenridge Road, mountain to the south of us here, to make sure that that is safe. We're doing a bunch of work to try and stabilize the soil that's up there. We have had a very fortunate winter as far as erosion, where it's been very mild. We had a little bit of rain, started growing some grasses and some forbs, kind of stabilized the soils, and then about a week ago we had some pretty big rains, and we didn't have massive landslides. So as bad as this winter has been for vegetation, it's actually been really good for the Burrell fire because the canyon's still open.
Yeah.
And Havilah, what's left of it, is still there, because Clear Creek burnt most of that watershed at high severity, and if we had had heavy rains in the Paiutes early on, we would have had Clear Creek just blow out, which goes straight through Hobo Campground and Miracle Hot Springs. So we've been fortunate enough not to blow out Old Kern Canyon Road and the campgrounds and the hot springs because of the mild winter. we'll just see what the mild winter brings us for this summer, because we don't need drought-stricken trees.
Speaking of Burrell Fire, did the bear team come in and do any work on either the forest or BLM?
Yes, we do know that the bear team approved, I don't know the actual funds, the numbers, but they did come out. They've done some road stabilization, culvert replacements, some grading out there, and a lot of hazardous materials removal.
Okay. On just on the public lands or on the private lands as well?
Bear funding does not really apply to private lands. That is all going to be under the WIRT, which is I don't remember what the acronym stands for, but it's the state's version of that. And they've come in and done a lot of the remediation in Havilah and Valley View and the edge of the Breckenridge community.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen that they've been really busy. I just haven't seen any activity from like bear vehicles going through.
What does BEAR stand for?
BEAR is the Burn Area Emergency Response.
Thank you.
So we evaluate the area immediately following a fire to see what are the biggest risks to the surrounding environment and to the public. Even though we're not doing work on private land with BEAR funds, we look at the ground above and immediately adjacent to private lands, so that if we see potential for failures or toxic materials moving across, we make sure we focus on those areas first.
Thank you.
Is this state or county funded?
It's federal funding.
I got that bear is a funding thing, but who are the worker bees that work with that?
That all depends. It's based on the kind of your specialty. So we've got our local recreation staff doing some work on trails and some of the roads.
Is it USFS? No?
It mostly U.S. Forest Service, but on occasion we do have other agencies help out. If we have particularly bad, like hazardous materials areas, then we'll bring in EPA and some other ones. For the bear, right now it's all been Forest Service employees and contractors working for Forest Service.
Yes, sir.
In general terms, after a fire burns through an area and you have a standing tree, is that considered an asset that can be sold and reused, or it's a liability that you have to manage, dollar-wise?
Yes. So we are also working on what I'm calling the bear salvage sale, the Burrell salvage sale, and that's going to be up around the community of Valley View, and and south of that, along some of that Saddle Springs Road, Paiute Mountain Road. If we can get to that stuff immediately, the first year following it, that material can be sold to a mill. It still retains some of its economic value. That is why we call it salvaging. We are salvaging the economic value and protecting the environment with it, and it helps prep us for planting afterwards. If, like in the French fire, we wait 3 or 4 years, it has no economic value, but it's still a risk to the public, and it's still something that we have to deal with. So French fire is going to cost us a whole bunch of money. If I can get it through, the Burrell fire should pay for itself. It will not make enough money. It won't make any money for the government, but it might be able to pay for itself.
If in one's adventures up there you see snags, several days one thinks like, oh, if the wind blows too hard, this thing might come down and whop something. Who should one contact?
That all kind of depends on where the snag is and what hazard it is and how many there are. Honestly, if you're standing in the French fire along some of those areas where everywhere you look there's all kinds of dead burnt trees, we know about it. We can't get out there and just deal with every single one. If you're in a campground, a trailhead, even if it's in a fire area, but there's a few snags next to your homes. A lot of you have land that's right adjacent to federal land, both Forest Service and BLM. If there's a tree standing that you have a concern about and it's on federal land, get a hold of the Forest Service, get a hold of me. That's kind of my job right there, is to make sure that stuff gets taken care of. And we'll send somebody out, do an evaluation. If it's our responsibility and we have the means to do it, we will get it felled.
Oh.
And if we determine that it's actually on your property, then we will help you probably find somebody, but we can't do the work for you.
I may have been using the wrong term. What I used to know as a snag, a standing tree and a tree is falling over and it's just barely hanging on to it, subject to going down.
Right, that would also still be a snag if it's a particularly dangerous one, and so we'd definitely come out and try and take care of that. Also, something we would call more or less a widowmaker, because just standing underneath it will ruin your day.
Can you educate us on how the federal freeze is affecting the national forests and also about firefighting?
I can't educate you too much on that one. I am going to leave some of this stuff for Deputy Gomes here to talk about that. But we have been in a federal freeze, and we are facing a changing administration, and that changes some of it's pretty normal, although we're seeming to be through a pretty extreme point right now. So I'm going to reserve some of that talking to him.
I have a question about the Nui Cooney Center. Should I wait to talk to the other gentleman?
You want to talk about Nui Cooney, or you want me to?
Brian's more familiar with that project, so we can kind of, I'll let you take it.
Sure. So Nui Cooney Center, I'm not going to get into too many details, but the management of the Nui Cooney Center, the multicultural resource center, anyway, the multicultural center was unable to continue effectively managing that into the future. And so we, through many months of discussions, we ended up terminating that permit mutually. So through a mutual termination, that is now a vacant building. The plan is to put that back out for bid prospectus and get it back being used by its intended purpose. So once we work with the forest supervisor, with John here, the decision makers, it will go out, we will advertise it that this building is up for management. Somebody can apply for a special use permit to use it for specific things. We want to use it for its intended purpose. And if a group of people has the financial means and the stability to manage that, we will issue a permit and it will be back to similar to what it was before.
I just want to say that my father took that building on when it was a pile of rotten lumber and a mispoured foundation. And that building stands because of my father's efforts. And there should be a plaque on it dedicated to him. And he put his own money and his own talents and got his contractor's license at 70 to build that building. And he never dreamed that it would be taken back by the Forest Service.
Well, it was transferred to the Forest Service being on that property, but the intent was and still is for it to be used as a multicultural center. And we do appreciate all the work that he's done and everybody else, because it was definitely a joint effort.
Well, no, it was my dad's effort. He did have help, but he absolutely spearheaded that thing. He put up the Campbell and Sequoias in our home while they worked on the roof. He paid for the meals for every fundraiser they ever ran. He had his tools stolen twice and had to replace them at his own expense. That roll-up door I know cost 10 grand and he paid for it. I just want to say that I would like to see a plaque in his name on that building, because for generations to come, that's one of our traditions here, is we honor our elders. And by not doing that, we aren't honoring the elders that created that building.
Why don't you come into the office and we'll talk about it with Mr. Gomes here and see what we need to do, and it'll probably, if we move forward with something like that, it'll probably be after the bid prospectus so that we're working with whatever new permittees would be interested in managing that.
When will we know when the new permit situation becomes available?
We will announce it in newspapers and locally. I'm not sure exactly the process of how it works. I'm not in special uses, and I don't have a time frame at this point. I'd like to get it done as fast as possible.
Okay, I'm just curious why all the books were taken out of there and donated elsewhere.
They're stored.
We didn't touch any of that stuff. It was through
They're
a
stored?
corporation.
They're stored, okay, I'm very pleased to hear that, because they were all in native design.
You may have answered the question, what was the status of the bid process? Not.
We have not gone through the evaluation to see what we need to do for the bid process yet.
Okay.
Unfortunately, with a lot of the other things going on, we are stabilized that. We've gone in a couple times to make sure that it's still a sound building and that nobody's trying to break into it and use it. And we need to evaluate with the forest supervisor and the local district rangers here to get it moved forward.
Thank you.
Carl.
Brian, there's a lot of native plants on the property. How would a group or a person get permission, or who would we go to if we could go and, are they dying? Can we water them? Is the water on in the building? Is there any way to preserve the natural resource there?
We went in there and the water is onto the building. I think the handle to the hose bib has been removed so that people can't just go in there and start filling up their motorhomes or just turning it on and deciding to run through the tank of water,
Right.
which has happened. Funny how people like to do that. And so if somebody wants to come in and talk to us, probably fill out a volunteer agreement so that we've got some sort of record that you're doing it officially. But we don't want people just going out there randomly and doing it without any accountability. But yes, a volunteer agreement would be the best way to document that and make sure that it's being done efficiently
Okay.
and officially.
Yes, sir. Is there any Forest Service funding supplied to trash pickup and restrooms along the river and around the lake?
There's always some Forest Service funding for that. Right now, we are still in our continuing resolution, and so the status of our funding throughout the year is in flux. We don't know exactly how much money we're going to get, or how to plan things.
Let me clarify my question. If funding is cut off, would there be no support for the trash pickup in the restrooms? Would they just be shut down, or would somebody else pick that up?
So I mean, that's like, if we get to the end of the continuing resolution here at the beginning of March, and there is no budget, the government will go into furlough, and we will all stop working.
And the trash will just pile up?
We've got a lot of volunteers that help you with that, and some other people, but if we go into furlough, the government is not allowed to continue working. Furloughs are temporary, and then we, pick up the pieces at the end.
All right, so we really do need that funding to continue.
A budget is a very good thing.
I'm semi-retired now,
Can you tell us a little bit about the current volunteer programs and volunteer people that are working with the Forest Service here?
Brian, I'll let you count down and see if we have
We do have a fairly robust volunteer group of volunteers for various different things. We've had quite a few that help with trash pickup. We do have groups that will help purchase or rent like the porta potties and the dumpsters. That is still moving forward. All those groups. We do have a lot of people that will groups like four-wheel drive groups that will come out and help do trail maintenance. We've got bicycle groups that come out and do trail maintenance. So we do have a fairly robust volunteer group. What Al was trying to do, Al Watson, before he left, was get a volunteer coordinator, because that is one of the things we're a little bit weak in right now, that to allow each staff area to try and manage their own volunteers becomes a little bit challenging as far as kind of the dynamics and trying to keep things orderly. So we were unable to purchase or to hire a volunteer coordinator, and so we're kind of in that flux right now. We still have volunteers, but it's kind of piecemeal together. You know, if any group wants to come in and do specific work, we can definitely put together volunteer agreements for each one. For some people, people will come out for once a week to do things, and then there's things like Stewards of the Sequoia. They're a mountain biking group, and they do a lot of trail work for us, and they're out on a regular basis doing trail work as organized by the government. So they come to us, they say we want to work on this trail. We say, okay, how many miles do you want to do? How many miles have you done? And it's accountability. Did that answer your question? Or
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a very important part of what you do.
Yes, volunteers definitely help a lot.
And in,
I'm going back to him first.
Are there roadless areas that are burned? How do you deal with the cleanup?
Like inventory roadless areas?
In the wilderness area?
Yes, so we had a trout fire last year started in wilderness. We have sent people out to do some trail work on that. We don't use any mechanized machines on that, so it's just shovels and hand tools, and if they have to go a long ways, we can get packers in. We are working right now about getting some packers into the Domeland Wilderness in the trout to maintain some of those trails. We will not be doing any vegetation removal in wilderness. The long fire, basically the same thing. Most of the long fire was in BLM land, but it was also on Forest Service, and we are out there working on maintaining those trails and making sure that if we have standing dead trees, a bunch of snags along them, that they get felled either with a crosscut saw, old-fashioned hand saws, or saws and axes. But we don't use chainsaws out there. Yeah, no wilderness was burnt up in the Borel fire, but some inventory roadless areas are. A lot of the area between Gulf Meadow and the highway, Old Kern Canyon Road and 178, is inventory roadless areas. They have to be managed very lightly on the ground, and we are not planning any timber removal in those areas. We will go in and open up a few areas to make sure it's safe, and we've Southern California Edison and Kern County Roads have done some work out there as partners with us, and they help maintain their own infrastructure. But other than that, it's light hands on the ground.
In your opinion, when I write to my Congressman Vince Vaughn, should I suggest that the Forest Service is underfunded in this area and should actually increase funding so we're not relying on volunteers to do essential work?
I am not going to answer that one because that opens up a big can of worms. I apologize.
Yes, for me.
That's up to you.
Yeah, but you're always underfunded. You've always been underfunded, so.
can you explain how the Kern River Conservancy helps you out? And maybe if you're not able to say, but I mean, the freezes have something to do with the Kern River Conservancy having a problem with porta potties and trash pickup. How do they help?
The Kern River Conservancy is very good at fundraising and bringing together volunteers for some very large projects. They're good at organizing groups of people, working with the local communities, the businesses, to help gain momentum for some of the cleanup. They do very good fundraisers to help purchase the rentals of porta potties and dumpsters and roll-offs. They do that for both the BLM and for the Forest Service. And they're good at organizing very large groups to do cleanups, like big heavy hit, large areas for like one-off projects. There are other groups that are better at continuously helping with cleanup and maintaining like porta potties and getting facilities, adding to those facilities for the long term. The Keepers of the Kern was a good one for just going out once or twice a week, every week for years. And so a little bit different scale, but sometimes long term with less people is better than one heavy hit with a lot of people, and sometimes a big heavy hit is what you need in some areas, and it works out as a group. But their primary thing is fundraising and getting supplies like that. They also do a lot of advertising, so public service announcements to try and get awareness out there. And the Forest Service, BLM, Kern County Fire, and the local communities, like rafting companies, will work together through the Kern River Conservancy to do some of those public service announcements.
You want to tag out?
The mouth of the canyon has that's in the Kern River, and it's kind of an eye-opener for people. Is anyone who came up with the idea of putting a big billboard that says, "Here's how to poop in the woods"?
Yes. So there's a group of people that go around. It's like government employees and it's like a third party. It's basically Leave No Trace, and they will come out and do education. Sometimes they put up like booths to kind of give some of that education, and they've got a whole policy and a method of Leave No Trace. Walk out where you need to walk, go do things, but you don't leave anything behind. Pack it in, pack it out, that type of stuff. Sometimes they will put up large signs places where they're seeing the most problems. We did have a group of Leave No Trace come out to the Upper Kern a couple years ago and do a lot of education out there because they saw it as a heavy hit area where a lot of people were using it for a shorter amount of time, and the amount of trace that was left behind afterwards was astounding. And so they have come and tried to help with that. And we haven't put a big billboard up for that, but we do have several smaller signs that we've put up, and we can definitely work with them if we think that's appropriate on the Upper Kern. I'm going to give it over to John Gomes here.
Okay.
Mr. Gomez.
Thanks for inviting me to participate in the meeting here. I'm happy to be here. I see a lot of familiar faces out there, some folks that I even work with as well. So I used to work for Sue Porter back when I first started at the Forest Service years ago. So I've been working for the Forest.
Congratulations, John.
So I've been working for the Forest Service for about 19 years now. I started here on the Kern River Ranger District. Like I said, Sue was one of my supervisors. I also worked for Brian at one time. For the past almost 4 years, I've been over on the Western Divide Ranger District, and that's where I was also Brian's counterpart. I was an ecosystem manager over there, managing some of the giant Sequoia groves on the Western Divide Ranger District. So I'm really happy to be back here in the community, back where I started at the Forest Service. I love this place a lot. It's a great town, a lot of great people here in the community. So many pluses, so many positive things here in the Kern River Valley. The tourism industry that we have here, the whitewater rafting companies, our campsites, our wilderness areas. Yes, we've had some fires lately, and we've lost some beautiful forest, but we've got a good staff of folks here on the Kern River Ranger District that's committed to rebuilding and replanting and getting things turned around. So let's see, I am a deputy district ranger. I'm not the district ranger. The deputy district ranger is kind of like the alter ego of the district ranger, so kind of assist the district ranger with helping to with administrative decisions that kind of run the local district here in
So
the
you're
Kern
like
River Valley.
lieutenant governor.
Sort of like that, yeah. And so in the absence, so like with the hiring freeze that we're currently going through right now, we haven't been able to fill that district ranger position. I was hoping when I came back here to kind of work under a district ranger that would help me, teach me some things and stuff like that. But lo and behold, I've been thrown into the job of
Why hasn't that position been filled? It's been empty for quite a while.
Yeah, and so they were in the process of they had advertised it, they had done interviews for it, and then lo and behold, the hiring freeze came. So they weren't able to fill it, and I just kind of snuck in under the radar at the last minute, as a matter of fact. Otherwise, it would have been, Brian would have still been like having to like run the district by himself and do his other job as well. So we're all doing our best. I think locally for our district, we are in pretty decent shape. We have a pretty good staff of folks here. Brian's department in particular, the timber department is staffed up fairly well. We have a good special use administrator that's working with our permittees to review their permits and keep things moving along. We have a really good range person, Miles, that's, I sat in on one of the UI meetings where we work with the permittee to like lay out what they're going to be doing, how many cattle they can put out and graze for a particular year. And so he's excellent, and he's working with all our grazing allotment folks and renewing those. And let's see, what else? Andy Stone is our hydrologist. He's been doing a lot of excellent work up on the Kern Plateau, where with the Plumas Corporation, Cal Trout, Trout Unlimited, they're restoring a lot of our meadows up on the Kern Plateau. So like Trout Meadow, Osa Meadow, had restoration work done to them. Cannell is another awesome project that's about 60% of the way through the NEPA process and also the planning process, and that's, I believe, taking place with Plumas Corporation, if I'm not mistaken. And so there'll be a slight little trail reroute for that Cannell meadow so that it takes the trail out of the meadow and doesn't have the impacts going through the middle of the meadow there. We have a lot of, there's some funding challenges and some staffing challenges, but we have a lot of great partners like those folks that I just mentioned. Yeah.
My grandfather worked for the Forest Service back when they rode horses.
Yes.
And I wanted to ask, is that a possibility for some of this trail work?
Yeah.
Groups of people on horseback to get to some of these areas?
So Brian had mentioned a little bit about it, in particular in the wilderness areas, like in that Denman wilderness area. I know our recreation department is working on a plan to like do some hazard tree mitigation for some of the trails, for the fire that took place up there. And so one of the things that they're looking at is, can we have one of those a packing group come and help us, with packing the equipment in there and leading the restoration effort via horse and stuff like that. So that we are looking into that.
Well, mine can actually pull a wagon.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah.
Can't take that in the wilderness, though.
Yeah, probably not.
No wheeled vehicles. So,
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, excellent question. Yes.
Does the state of California have any obligation to help maintain the national forest or
So,
BLM?
in partly they do. So like for the rivers, the groundwater, the wildlife species, the state of California has jurisdiction with overseeing resources like that. And so, and then the rest of the federal land is in general like our timber resources, that's Forest Service that would be responsible for that type of stuff. But we often work together on projects. So, for instance, if there's a wildlife species that is a endangered species, like our Pacific fisher, we're working hand in hand with the California Department of Fish and Wildlife to help manage that resource on the forest.
When it comes to, fuels reduction, who funds the fuels reduction?
So it could be multiple jurisdictions. So like it depends what area you're speaking about. So it could be like if you live up in the El Sierra area and it's on private land, that's adjacent to the Forest Service. It could be CAL FIRE that you could work with to have you help do some fuels reduction projects on private land. There's a lot of different funding resources.
Well, I think there's something like 40 million acres of federal land in California.
Yeah.
And so, would that come under Forest Service?
Yeah, so the federal land is Forest Service, yeah. And so, yeah, If it's fuel reduction work on the forest, it generally is led by the Forest Service, but we also have, we work with partners too. You know, and this is different from when Brian and I first started in the agency, and Sue is here as well. It's like, it's gone the way of, we're working with a lot of partners now. You know, and so my old district, I was a staff of one sometimes over there, and I didn't have any other timber folks to help me out. So one of the things that I really got into was using partner agencies like Great Basin Institute that's based in Reno, Nevada, and they have technicians that'll come out and help us, you know, do everything from like lay out timber sales to cruise timber to like, you know, putting the contracts out and stuff like that. I mentioned Kumis Corporation that helps with like meadow restoration. They basically do work on national forest lands. We oversee the project. We are responsible for putting out the NEPA document and administering these contracts. But we have partners that are like that we're working with that'll help us increase our, you know, the pace.
And where
and
does
scale.
their funding come from?
So they'll often put in for grants, you know, sometimes with the state of California, other nonprofit agencies. Some of the money comes from the state, some of the money comes from federal sources, and then they work. If they successfully get one of those grants, it'll go to our grants and agreements department, and then they help manage that money between the Forest Service and that agency that's doing the work for us. So.
Right, I do have a question.
Go to Barbara.
Our river is federally wild and scenic.
Yep.
Conversation came up the other evening with some of us. There is a state wild and scenic designation. Since we're not sure where we're going, you know, with funding and staffing and everything, for the Fed wild and scenic, could you apply for a state wild and scenic river to get help from the state for management? Do you know how that works?
That's a good question, Barbara. So, yeah, it is a wild and scenic river. You know, it's been designated as a federal resource.
Right.
But if you're, and so let me ask you an additional question. Would you be asking about money that can be used to help do some projects
Well, I was
along the
thinking,
river?
if it could be applied for
Yeah.
and receive designation from the state of California for a state wild and scenic river, there would be funding to maybe pick up the spaces that we might lose based on what's to take place with cutbacks and budgets and things like that. I just threw that out wondering if.
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, I'm not exactly, I don't have a good answer for that. I don't know.
Piggybacks on hers.
Okay.
We get visitors from all over the world
Yes.
to the Kern River Valley.
Yes.
And we have 2 signs in Spanish and English warning of the danger of the river.
Yes.
It should be in multiple languages.
Yeah.
And who would you discuss that with?
So I believe that's a city of Bakersfield sign, or is it a county?
Kern County.
Kern County, yeah, that has that sign, so that would be
Okay,
yeah, for one of our local reps.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead,
Okay.
yes.
So back to the freeze.
Yes.
I know that the freeze is affecting you folks. And I'm very concerned about firefighting and how it's affecting it. I don't know if you're able to speak about how it has truly affected your department in the possibility of wildland firefighting. I spoke at the other meeting 2 nights ago,
Okay.
and I know from speaking, and I say about my colleagues, I used to work for the Forest Service also, and also the Park Service, that this freeze has been making it so that it's questionable as to whether we will have enough wildland firefighters, and that you can't depend on structural firefighters because they don't know the territory and how to fight that fire.
Yes.
Can't,
So I can.
if for some reason you can't answer about because of
Yeah.
being a government employee,
Right.
I want to know what I can do in order to speak for you to my congressman. And I know you can't tell me how to speak to him, but tell me what your needs are so that I can.
Okay, I can touch on that a little bit, you know, because if you're right, you know, as a federal employee, we're limited on what we can talk about, you know, and it's not that I don't want to talk about it, it's just that, you know, that's kind of our current direction right now. So what I can say is, to your question about wildland firefighters, sorry, if you're not, you know, hear me.
You gotta keep it closer to them.
So for wildland firefighting, the safety sensitive positions that are part of the Forest Service, those are not being cut. So we still have our full staffing of firefighters. What is being affected, so there is a hiring freeze, so potentially our seasonal firefighters, they're working on a temporary hiring authority to allow them to hire for those seasonal firefighting positions. So that will also take place. It's going to take a little bit of paperwork to make that happen, but that's not going to be, shouldn't be held up. So all our other firefighting positions are funded, are not going to be cut. Our law enforcement positions are not being cut. So public safety is a big concern, and they are still keeping to the normal staffing levels for that we shouldn't see a hit in that respect. Where we may potentially, and I'll leave it at that. I'll leave it at that. But we can also, you know, it's a difficult time, and we're
I
kind
know, I'm
of.
willing to help you.
Yeah.
And I bet everybody else here is too, because we don't want to have a fire come into our town
Oh,
and into our
I
community.
agree.
So,
Yeah.
and you guys live here too. So we're willing to help you. That's the
We appreciate that, yeah, and we love you guys too. It's like we live here as well and stuff, you know. So, we have seen some cuts here locally on our district, and we're hoping that it, you know, it doesn't affect us anymore. And I'll leave it at that. You know, but there's a lot of stuff that's on the news, and just keep an eye out for it, you know, and just, you know, if you see us out on the street, just kind of like, you know, just kind of like encourage us and stuff like that, you know, because a lot of folks are going through some difficult things right now.
So I have a question about Whiskey Flat Trailhead.
Yeah.
And a few months ago, Al was over here, and we had a meeting, kind of a brainstorming meeting, came up with lots of different ideas about things that could be done there, improvements. This was after the acquisition of the land there.
Okay.
And I'm just wondering, never have heard anything more about it, if there's been any talk about it, or maybe just there isn't the funding available to do anything with that now.
Yeah, and you know, what I would ask is that maybe you follow up with me, and I can ask our recreation department to see what sort of like
Recreation was there, yeah, we did flip charts and little document.
Yeah, I'd be happy to follow up with you on that.
We talked about trailhead parking lot and bridge and all kinds of stuff. Just never heard anything else.
Yeah. Feel free to call me at the ranger station.
Okay.
We can talk some more, and I can give you some more
Okay, thank
details
you.
about that. But yeah, it's one
I mean,
of
it's
our.
probably you didn't be a very heavily used area, you know, very accessible.
Yeah,
It deserves some attention.
yeah, it's an awesome deal.
Yeah.
But you know, anyone else out in the audience as well, feel free to give me a call at the office. You know, I'm a public servant. I'm here to serve you guys. I'm here to serve the public and stuff. So that's my philosophy, and that's you know, I know my staff shares the same sentiment as well. So, any other questions?
I know it's a Corps of Engineer project, but do you have any information on the timeline of when that visitor center is ever going to get built?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, Brian and I have been like getting invites to go to some of their meetings. So groundbreaking, I believe, is taking place May 28th, if I'm not mistaken. And so.
Memorial Day is what you said.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so they are finalizing some of the planning for that, and you know, so yeah, groundbreaking should be taking place pretty soon.
Okay, thank you.
Can you give us any information about our local hot springs, Remington and Miracle? I know I've been working with Brian, as I'm in charge of the Hot Springs Angels, and we've got like 100 volunteers we're trying to find a way forward to reopen Miracle and have it be safe and family friendly.
Right. Yeah, I know it's a popular spot. It's been a long time local resource, and it's, you know, a beloved place for a lot of people to use and stuff. So Brian did fill me in on that, project a few days ago. We are going to be working. I do have a meeting plan with our forest supervisor and some of the other forest service folks to kind of like say, okay, how do we proceed on this? Because it's frankly, it's been a project that's been languishing for a long time, you know, and so that is one of our priorities is to kind of address what's taking place over there. But yeah, we will let you know what's happening with that.
Good.
In the red?
Yeah, I'm just, the hot springs issue, I meet people literally from all over the world.
Right.
And from over 100 foreign countries in the last 30 years, from 90 cities in California, from every state of the union. People come there, and many of them come specifically just because of the hot springs.
Yes.
And with the internet now, it's world famous. And Miracle should be developed. It's healthy, it's healing. There are people like Hal who can't get down to Remington, yet the water is healing for your body and your spirit. And it should be developed. It's a national treasure.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. You know, it is a very important resource to the community, and so, it is my intention to kind of like really look into it, see what we can do about that. You know, because it needs attention. You know, we can't leave it kind of like going the direction that it's currently going. You know, where it needs a solid management plan where maybe we develop it, maybe we do some other course of action down there. But stay tuned. We'll definitely keep
I
everybody.
just don't want to see it developed in a way where it's real expensive, like where the common person can go and
Yeah.
even if they pay $5 or $10, and you know, they're not make it like you got to pay $100
Sure.
or $200. You know, that's not my sort of thing.
Yeah, whatever decision are being made, we'll definitely keep, the local, citizens, updated on what's taking place. It's not going to be a decision that's made, in some back room where, people haven't had a chance to like voice their opinion and stuff like that. So yeah, stay tuned for that. I'll definitely get back to you. Yes, sir.
How is it determined what campgrounds are going to be open, like Pioneer Point? I know it was closed because of the dam work, but
Yeah.
are any of those set to be reopened? Or?
So Pioneer Point actually is one of our campsites where unfortunately they cut off one of the water lines for it and one of the sewer lines for it. So it's going to require a little bit of planning and funding that is currently not available. And so Pioneer Point, it's one of the more pretty, campgrounds in the area and stuff like that, but it's unfortunately not going to be one that we're going to be able to open up right away. I'd like to see it opened up, and so that's one of the ones that we'll have to work on, getting that, the plumbing working again there.
So the Corps of Engineers isn't going to be held responsible for cutting off the sewer line that goes over the top of Main Dam?
That's...
Hello? I can't believe they didn't know it was there since they put it in.
That's going to be one of the many things that we'll have to work on. So yeah, definitely.
Okay.
I can't believe it either. I'm like, what? We let them cut it and.
From the time I saw them working on it, I went, I hope they know where that lift station is and where that water line goes.
Yeah. So, but it is it's a nice campground. And did you have any other questions on other campgrounds as far as?
Well, any that just hadn't been open. I mean, I knew the
Main
construction would be an issue for some of them.
So the Army Corps is going to be responsible for rebuilding Main Dam. And they are going back out to bid in the next couple weeks to get a contractor for rebuilding Main Dam Campground. So that should be coming out soon, and it'll be advertised locally. And by the way, it's the Army Corps, so local does not mean the valley to them.
West Coast.
Yeah.
Anywhere west
It's
of the Mississippi, okay.
probably a little bit more local than that, but it is also a federal agency, so if company wants to move over from New York and they're the best bid, then they might win it. Unlikely. But that should be coming out. They've got plans to rebuild it, and our recreation staff is working on trying to make sure that it meets all of our standards, particularly with facilities and, like bathrooms. It has to have a certain number of bathrooms. It has to have a certain number of water sources and tables and stuff like that. So we're working on it, and in the Army Corps says they're going to be working on that this summer.
Can I assume the design is going to be a little more upgraded than the 1960s version that was there, where you actually have spurs that people can drive their current day vehicles into and things like that?
I hope so. Yes, it seems
Okay.
like it.
Just
I mean,
curious.
the Army Corps does have quite a bit of funds, set aside for that. It is part of their original project
Okay,
design.
good to know. Thank you, Brian.
Brian? Yes.
Could you change this campground to Miracle Hot Springs, the hobo campground? Is it open, or what is the status on that campground?
Okay, good question, yeah. So Brian had mentioned a little bit about the Clear Creek drainage that, burned at moderate and high severity. Because of the instability of that particular drainage, the Forest Service is kind of like, at this point, we're probably going to keep that campground closed because of the threat of high flow that might come through there for that hobo campground. The other parts of that area, we are also working on seeing what we can do for Miracle Hot Springs, the rest of that area as far as like public use goes and stuff like that. So stay tuned for that. Right now there's a closure that was in effect through the end of March, and we'll see. We're currently working to see how much of that area we could open for the public, to go and use those particular areas. Hobo Campground, because of the amount of the residency time that people would have there, camping there overnight, and not, if you're sleeping in your tent, and we get like a summer thunderstorm or something like that, the potential, danger to the public that's there is a real possibility that people could be in danger if there's a storm that comes through there and we have that campground open. So we have a number of other campgrounds in the lower canyon, like Sandy Flat, that'll be open, that's primarily the closest one to Hobo that folks will be able to go and use. But again, that Miracle Hot Springs area is an area that we really have to address, and that's going to be one of the things that we take on soon.
So likely it's not open this summer.
Likely not open, but it hasn't been decided fully yet if that's going to be closed for sure. So just again, for the threat of the danger to the public, people camping in that area. Any other? So again, glad to be back here on the Kern Ranger District. I've been back here for 4 weeks now, trying to get up to speed on different projects, and look forward to working with all of you. And if you got questions, feel free to stop by the ranger station, give me a call.
What's your contact information, please?
Yeah, it's and I can pass that out to folks if you like. But I've got either cell phone or my office phone. But other than that, folks, I think that's about all we got.
Thank you.
Have a good afternoon.
Thank you, Brian and John, for giving us a very informative program, and thank you all for coming. I'm really happy we have a good attendance with our new meeting change, and I'm going to hand it over to John now if he has any final announcements, and we'll be announcing future programs in Saddleback.
Yeah. I don't think I have anything more. Thank you much.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you
it's
much.
good to see you, Big Carl.